Man, I have to go bring them to school, so they made on time to do something. Yeah.
One guy popped in there. I was see the name of myself. He might need me. I need a few seconds.
How many?
So much to do. We have a verse by Hashem downstairs, so the shiur will be finished by 8:45.
Let's just ready. If we can learn, our nephew is a tank commander going to Gaza tonight.
Your nephew?
Yeah. Nachum Tzvi Ben
Nachum Tzvi Ben Tzipora, Hashem's going to watch over him and all the chevra. Should come home safely and give a big patch to our enemies. Amen. On page Kufchav base. Kufchav base. We decided to learn last shiur 2 weeks ago. The note at the back of the sefer, the shorish of Rotzon's Madbina, the Rav Kook. So now the Mechaber takes us down to the Olam Hasiyah, a very, very straightforward, clear discussion, the subject of Bechira, of Ratzon Bechira. So page Kufchav Beis. We take Bechira Choshes, we take the choice that we have and the choices that we make, we take all of this for granted. They were able to have choice. The truth is that it's a side. It's a wondrous thing. It's the Kudah HaPnimis that distinguishes a human being from everything else that exists. And now let's try to understand on a deeper level. What is this gift that Hashem Yisbarach gave us, and this gift and this challenge that we have of being Baalei Bechira in this Baina Ba'omek in Yonu Shel Haratzon. Ketzad hu noveya b'shar shel mamish miratzon Hashem. We need to understand the connection between our Ratzon as human beings and the Ratzon of Hashem. Because that which connects the Ratzon of a human being with the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Bechira Chavshis. And as I've said many times over the years, those who learn this from Kedoshim know that there are certain Gedarim within the world of Bechira Chavshis, and man's Ratzon and his freedom of choice is not completely unfettered and unbound. Of course, there's Hashgacha Pratis. And there's the world of Yediyah and Yediyas Hashem, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan, and there's the Ratzon and the Bechira of a human being. Of course, the Sfarim of Ishbitz and Reb Tzadok have worked a lot on this sugya to understand the Mahalach of Rabbi Shimon and the Mahalach of the Ari HaKadosh, and understanding that the limits of Bechira Chavshis. But in order to come to a discussion of those limitations, we first have to understand the koach of Bechira, the koach of Ratzon. V'ezbanis bebriya oila ki chavsha shel adam hu davar pil'i. When one thinks about existence of creation, then he begins to realize that the chayfish, this chayfish that we've been talking about, chayrus, chayfish, bechira, ratzon, is a davar pili. It's a wondrous thing. Kevin she'adam hu hayitzur hayachid b'chol hatava sheyesh lo bechira chavshis. Because the human being is the only nivra, the only thing that exists that has bechira chavshis. Only a human being is able to incline, to bring his Ratzon this way or that way. Shar habrum einam kain, all that exists cannot do this. All of creation besides the Tzelem Elokim, besides the human being, is all that exists is part of that hierarchy, that the mechanical world of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mechanical doesn't mean that it's not with Hashgacha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I mean, there's a big machlokes of the Kadmonim about what's the nature of the Hashgacha Pratis when it comes to an animal, to an inanimate object, a plant, and so on. But every single thing in the world, everything in the world is mushkach, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the Yotzeh HaKol, his hand is on everything. But there's a seder of sibo musuva, of cause and effect. Everything else that exists in a way of cause and effect. So Hashem Yisbarach made the world in such a way that when it's raining, the grass can't say, I don't feel like growing and developing right now. I'm having Yerida. I'm having Yerida. I'm not going to shul this morning. I'm not going to learn today. And I say them, the grass can't say I'm having Yerida, and I'm not going to respond to this gift that Hashem has given, the rain. A human being can do that. A human being can have the gift of life in the morning. Hashem is raining on him, a new day. The Hashem is raining on this guy a new day. It's raining. It's Givaldic. There's new life that's coming into you, and the guy could decide to say, you know what? No Maidani this morning. No Negelvas. Chas v'shalom. No Negelvas. No Maidani. No brachas. I'm done. I'm not growing. Hashem says, but it's raining. And the guy could say, I'm not growing. Nothing else in creation can do that. It's a pella. All of creation is a way of siba umusuva, of cause and effect. This is how Hashem Baruch made it. That when it rains, this is what happens. Kol garim mashpia amashim mitachtav. The whole seder of creation is a seder of mashpia and makabel, and then the makabel is mashpia then the plant, which is makabel the rain. Now the plant gives some food to the animal, and all of creation is in such a way. Everything's kol garim mashpia amashim mitachtav ba'ofen muchrach, and nothing in the world in this amazing bria that Hashem Baruch made, nothing has a choice to opt out of that seder, of that mahalach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashpia chiyus milamala. V'yeredis lo'olam madrega ach madrega. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's or is mashpia into this world, and it descends through many infinite madregas. Madrega ach madrega. You call madrega nava zu shemitachtera. And from each madrega in the seder of creation, there is the madrega beneath it. This is the seder of hishtalshalos, that chain that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, and every single second of creation is giving it existence, giving it that vitality to continue on in that seder. It's not just that it was and that it continues. Hashem is every single second, infusing it with life, with vitality, with energy. But what we see is teva. And teva is a chain, is a hishtalshalos, is a shalshalos. V'kach teva kula mushpa v'nizan me'elav. And so the grass gets the rain, and it continues on. L'chein yesh teva chukim kvurim. Therefore, the scientists can write books and can make studies, and things are pretty much in that world of siba musuva are pretty much predictable until a miracle happens, something changes. But the seder of the hishtalshalos from the higher world to this world, and teva, is pretty predictable with chukim kivurim, with set, established rules, laws of nature. Hashem is tamid zerachas v'shakaz. The sun rises, the sun sets. Haruach nesheves, the wind blows, it moves. Hageshem yored, the rain comes down. Yesh ma'reches shemazina sa'olam ba'ofen otomati. And this all takes place because Baruch Hu created it in such a way where there's this surah that we have that everything is just on automatic. Ki'ilu, there was just something that happened at the beginning, and now everything is running. Which of course that's not how it works. But there is a seder of hishtalshalos of siba mesuvav, and everything that exists that does not have any bechira to opt in or out of that seder of hishtalshalos. Only a human being has autonomy. Only the human being exists in this wondrous shalshelis of creation, this that Hashem Baruch made, and a human being can decide, the Adonai, I do, I don't, I'm in, I'm out, I want to, I don't want to. Of course, he can't change the vast eternal plan of Hashem Baruch. You can't change that. And that's where we come to this inyan of Yediyah and Bechira. And that affects the person's individual life as well. How Yediyah and Bechira work together, which is a sod, which we don't understand. But all a person needs to know is that he has this koach to make a choice. He can go the opposite way of all the causes in his life. So it could be that this person comes from a long line of Paishei Yisrael. He comes from people who are Shoim and Paishei Yisrael, and this person says, I want to be a tzaddik. And he changes the whole mahalach, he turns everything around, and he becomes a tzaddik. Or Khalil can do the opposite. So all the garm shalavana. This way is why you see that by the tzaddikim, when this first started, when this was already a long time ago, when I was a kid, and it began even before I was born, where they began a certain new type of a dibur that this person, just killed, 30 nurses or something, and we have to go easy on him because, his mother was a nurse and he didn't like her. So that caused these 30 other murders because of the misfortune of his relationship with his mom, which we all feel bad about, but we would like to see this guy locked up. But there began new mahalach, minimizing the ability of a person to break out of that stronghold of choice. Now, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy for that guy. There's something that went wrong, and even when you look in the next week is the parasha of the Makal. It's a strange parasha. It's a strange parasha. The whole Vayikra is about Avodas Hashem. The whole Vayikra is about Avodas Hashem. Kavanis, it's Givaldik. Another Navi is a bump, but a big bump. But the whole Sefer is a Sefer of Avodas Hashem. Even though the Navi is part of the Mahalach of the Kroiva Kadesh. It's a Givaldik covered of the Shechina and so on. All of it's Avodas Hashem. And then you have this thing like the Makalo. This person is cursing Kivyahal. Now, if you study the background of that person, which I'm not going to go into right now, you could, this is next parasha. You could look into it. He didn't have a good upbringing. We'll leave it like that. Who his father was, he wasn't really raised by his father. Who his mother was, she was the one woman that was an exception, was different from the other Jewish women who were tzadkaniyas. He had what appears to be in the Torah and Chazal. He had a dysfunctional. That's a word that's you got to be careful. But he had a dysfunctional upbringing. He had a rough childhood, and ultimately, the effect. There's no question that upbringing had a huge impact on his life, and he turned out to be somebody that just did this horrible thing. That he went and. It says when it says the word Yotza, so Chazal say Mehechan Yotza. Rashi, where did he come from? He came from a difficult home. That's where he came from. He came from a difficult home, and he went out and he was Makalo, and he did something horrible, and ultimately he had to be killed for that. And he was held responsible for that. Even though Akash Baruch Hu is Avinu Aver Achman, Akash Baruch Hu knows what he went through. And there's nobody who's more compassionate. We can't be Masik Hashem's Baruch's Rachmanis. Afal Pichein, Akash Baruch Hu knew with his Yediyah El Yaina that this person, the Makalel, had the ability to overcome the challenges of his upbringing. He had the ability to do that. He could have done that. He wasn't stuck in the dysfunctionality of his past. Maybe some people are, and Hashem judges them differently. That's Hashem's business. We don't know. What happened here, what happened in the world, those years of the 50s, the 60s, where they began to look at criminals in a different way and how to judge the criminal, and that Beis Din Shalmata made themselves into a Beis Din Shalmala, and Beis Din Shalmala is no longer Leis Din, and everything is crazy now. We're living in a world that's totally crazy. So what happened to Bechira Chavshis? So we see this in the Torah. There's the Parsha of the Makal. The Parsha of Makal is a Parsha that says that yes, this person did not have like Zemira's Shabbos morning. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like he went to the best yeshiva. It doesn't look like his parents were like there for him. There were difficulties, there were challenges, and Afal Pichen HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Ben, he's finished. You can't do such a thing. And obviously he had the ability to. That doesn't mean that every person, only Hashem knows. But the level of Bechira, or the playing field of Bechira is vast, is huge. And man is unique in that way. And this is something that we shouldn't take for granted. Zu tofa'a masmiha, which means this is a very strange phenomenon. This is an unusual, strange thing. Doima hadav la'adam shenoy sein pekuda liyad shelo lahavi lakos mayim See, the person's mind commands his hand to lift up the cup of water. But the hand decides to rebel. And the hand says, no, I know that you want to have a drink, but the hand says, I'm tired, I've been doing this all these years, I'm done. I'm not doing it to you. Bara, it's clear, that the hand does not have any independent, autonomous will of its own. And therefore the hand does not have the ability to decide if it wants to listen, doesn't want to listen. Because there's a relationship of cause and effect, and as long as the person is healthy, because sometimes there's, God forbid, the mind wants and the hand cannot do that. But as long as the person is healthy, so then the mind, that's how Hashem Yisborach made it in the way of cause and effect. That however that works with all the electronics that's going on inside the person's body, the neurons, I don't remember all that stuff. So that's how it goes. He wants to. So his head says that. He does that. Now, so in the middle of all of this, and it's infinitely deeper than that. Just when a person studies the body, or studies the world, like on atoms and molecules and the seder of cause and effect that's in every cell. There are billions and billions of things that are going on in a cell, and all that's taking place is in a way of mashpia makabel, cause and effect. There's a chok, there's a seder. That's how it goes. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a busy universe, and then you have like this one, like goofy guy that doesn't want to get up in the morning to go to shul. This is one guy, like, I'm not going this morning. It's not so pashut that there is such a thing. Imkain ketzed yesh yitzur b'merachas hazayis, shegam hu chelek me'shalshelas, u'makabel es kol chiyusa milamala. So here we have a creature, a human being, who's a nivra, and his chiyus, all of those cells and everything else, he gets the same. He gets everything from above. He gets the same, even more sophisticated cells, and he gets all of that. He gets that from above, and it's all that he gets as part of the seder of their shtalshalos. It's all of these things, all these molecules and atoms, whatever. It's all the seder of shtalshalos that Hashem Yisborach created. And then all of a sudden, the hand disagrees with the brain. That's what a human being is. That the human has the ability to turn in a different direction from the whole seder of ishtalshalos. So there are 30, 40, 50 generations of kiyum mitzvahs, and this person decides, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done. Okay. The whole seder ishtalshalos. Ketzad yesh b'chir chavshus. How could there be such a thing? Yesh asvurim ki achein gam la'adam ein b'chir chavshus. So this led many people, including some brilliant philosophers and thinkers and scientists, to come to the conclusion that it's rak nidmer lanu. This is a game. And it just appears, we feel like we have bechira. Rak nidmer lanu sha'anu b'chir. And gam b'mada, yesh hatornim kach, and that's what began to change during the time of the Renaissance and the Reformation, where religion was suddenly challenged by scientific study, observation, experimentation, and all of a sudden, Bechira Chavshis was under attack, and the human beings began to see themselves as being another part of that seder of their shtalshalos. again, just a more sophisticated animal, a more sophisticated, developed, evolved part of the world, but nonetheless, part of the Seder of what they called evolution, and that whole mahalach, which there is an Indian that Hashem Baruch made Teva in such a way. But the chiddush of those years was to put man into that Seder, to make him part of that Seder. So rak nit belonish von Aborchim. Gam b'mad yeshatonim kach ulam. You saw God will be a hadasu. However, of course, the most basic fundamental principle of all of Yiddishkeit and Avodas Hashem is she'odam chavshi b'bchiraso, that a person is free to decide to make choices. Again, there are certain limitations, and that's not our decision to decide that I am presently limited. Our avodah is the avodah of Yosef Tzaddik. Yosef Tzaddik is, right now, I have to do the best I can to get away from the wife of Potiphar. That's what I have to do. What happened to his brother Yehuda? What happened to his brother Yehuda? There was a Maisa with Tamar, right? There was a Maisa that happened. And Chazal tells us that Bikesh Yehuda Lava. Chazal tells us that Yehuda tried to go to the other side of the street. He wasn't going to go there where there was a woman sitting. And he was going to, that type of a situation, he wanted to leave. And there was a Malach HaMumunah Lataiva. There's a Malach that came. And this Malach is called Malach HaMumunah Lataiva. A Malach that had to do with his Taiva. And Hoysif Taiva Latavaso. And he had a connection, he had a relationship with Tamar. And Mashiach comes from that. So all the Yosefs of the world, they point to Yehuda and they say, I want to be like him. Look, I'm waiting for what happened to me, and what I'm involved with this malach that Yehuda had. I like that malach. He's my malach, the malach which is Mamunah Lataiva. And the malach, what can I do? I had no choice. And my girlfriend's name is Tamar. And malasot, mani achalasot. So, any tafus, like I'm part of this mahalach, like Yehuda. I also want to bring Mashiach to the world, So I'm doing my best. This is a messianic mission that I'm on tonight, and I'm going to do the best I can to bring Mashiach to the world. No. That's not your avodah. If something came out in the Hakadosh Baruch Hu's Yediyah that something happened, and you're in the parasha of Yehuda, you're in the parasha of Shimshon Hagibra, whatever it was that happened to these interruptions to Bechira, that's not your inyan. And if such a thing is going on in your life, you better cry, and you better do vidui, and you better do tshuva and do the best you can to fix up your life. And don't bring any rayas from Yehuda, from David HaMelech. There's Hanhaga, there's Hanhagas HaYichud, there's Hanhagas HaMishpat, Hanhagas HaYichud. From our perspective, our world, our life is a life that's called Hanhagas HaMishpat, in the language of the Ramchal and Tzaddikim. And the Rebbe Shalom has Hanhagas HaYichud, which is Yediyas Hashem, which Hashem's inyan that he's working out. And we see that in that world of Yehuda and David HaMelech, there were big Balei Tshuva. Mitzidam, they were crying their whole lives and doing tshuva. That's our avodah. Hashem Baruch is working out through them something higher than themselves. And there's a malach. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's business. But the Yesod HaGadol B'Yahadus is she'adam chavshi b'bechirasa. It's your choice. Harayi hi she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzavah yisonim alasais. Again, this is Yiddishkeit 001. That's what we're talking about. And the Raya is HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us mitzvahs and averos and a whole seder of schar and einish, of reward and punishment. The person is retribution, good or bad, depending upon whether you did something good or you did something bad. Which will, of course, you can't punish a person if it's not his bechir. It would be a terrible injustice to punish somebody who's not responsible for it. Nobody would punish a baby for knocking something over. You can't punish an animal for doing what it's supposed to do. Nimsa Shabachira Chavshis Yisod HaTarku. So the Bezdin will do the best that they can as human beings to use their koch of halacha, of understanding halacha and intuition, and to try to come to an understanding of what happened here with this person, and what's the level of guilt, whether he's chayv, whether he's zakai, who is he, what happened, and the question of was this person's bechira taken away because of how his mother spoke to him, or because his Rebbe looked at him the wrong way 40 years ago. So that's something that can be raised with the Bezdin. The Bezdin, we have halachas and we have a seder of how to deal with these things. But mitzidenu, our avodah is to believe in bechira choshes, and that bechira choshes is wide open. Lachein omedes b'soikfa hasheila, so that therefore the question is still a powerful question. How could it be that a human being who's a piece of this seder, this stalshlus of creation, how is it that he has bechira chavshis? If one thinks deeply about creation, bechlal, this question becomes a sharper question. This goes back to when it says in Bereshis that the Vayivel Kim Sadam B'Tzalmo B'Tzelem Elokim Bara. So what does it mean, Tzelem Elokim? So there are Kadmainim. There are different opinions of what that means, Tzelem Elokim. What does it mean, the image of God? Reb Sadia Goyin and many of the Kadmainim say that the simple meaning of Tzelem Elokim is a Baal Bechira. That a person is a Baal Bechira. That's the simple pshat in Tzelem Elokim. So the question is, Shekenu Musagim Nivra, these concepts, Nivra, something that was created, Nivra, the chayfish, and freedom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked Adam Rishon, Ayaka, which means that Adam Rishon had the choice to eat from the tree or not to eat from the tree. You look in the Medrash, and the Medrash says an astonishing thing. It says in the Medrash, I've mentioned this in the past, we've spoken about this, it says in Koheles, Eis Le'av, Eis Lisna, Eis Mocham, Eis Shalom, all the Eaton, right? There are 28 times. And if you look in the Medrash, the Yalkut says, has a longer list. And it says, and there on the list, that there's a time for man to be in Gan Eden, there's a time for man to leave Gan Eden. Now, that would seem to imply that it was already set in advance that this was not a permanent situation, Gan Eden. That there was a time, Eis La'adam Likonis L'Gan Eden, Eis Lotzes M'Gan Eden. There was a time to be in Gan Eden, there was a time to leave Gan Eden. So the Itim on that list, which is a longer list than we have in Koheles, those words seem to imply that there was a Yediyas Hashem, that Adam and Chava were going to make that mistake on their Madrega, and they were going to eat from the tree. And that was something that was preordained, that had to be. That Adam was not going to remain in Gan Eden, there was going to be this whole history that would come afterwards, and Golus and Gula, and all that comes with all of that. Uvachol Zayis HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks Adam Harishon, Ayeka, which the Gemara says in the Sanhedrin, where did your heart turn? Because you made the wrong decision. That's what the Gemara explains. The word Ayeka, the name of the sefer is Ayeka. Where are you? Means, how did you make such a horrible decision? Which means that Adam Rishon and Chava had the choice to make that decision. With the Nachash and with what it says in the Medrash, whatever it is, Adam Rishon was asked by Kadosh Baruch Hu, how could you have done such a thing? Why did you do this? I want to hear from you. What happened? So a nivra means something that was created. The created means with all of the machinery, all of the software, the hardware, whatever it is, it's all there. So a nivra means everything is in place. Chofesh means the opposite of that. There's nothing that's set. That means nothing is established. So these two concepts of nivra, created, means that's it. You were made this way. Imagine you come to You come to do a wash, you bring your stuff to the washing machine, you open up the washing machine, and the washing machine, says to you, put a couple of sodas in here today in the refrigerator. And you say to her, what are you talking about? You're a washing machine. And the washing machine says, that's until this Erev Shabbos, Parshas Achimas Kedosha, Tavshin Pehei. Now I decide I've had enough of this. I'm so dizzy. I had enough of all this stuff. I can't take this anymore. I just ask you. I'd like to have a quiet life. Just put a Coke inside here, and leave, and I'll cool it off for you, and I'm fine. So that's like in movies, something like that. It doesn't happen. It never has happened. The movies are not true. Nothing has happened like that. It's a nivra. The teretz is it was created. A human being thinks he made this machine and he hooked it up and he wired it up as a washing machine. A washing machine does what it does. It doesn't become a refrigerator. But of course, that's all just a marshal of creation, which is infinitely more complicated than a couple of machines. So it doesn't. A nivra means that das is das. It's done. This is what it does until it no longer works. So it's supposed to be just like an animal. It keeps on going until it's done. It's finished and it dies. And everything else in the world that exists that way until it's finished. Nivra perush shekol haviyoso miskeyemes bekoch elyon shemahava mekaymoso. A nivra means, like we learned in the first parak of Shari Yichud V'Amunah of the Tanya, a nivra means that every single second there's that koch elyon, there's that koch of Hashem that's mahava mechaya, that gives existence, life and existence to this whatever, whether it's a rock or it's a plant, it's an animal or it's a planet. Every single second, ein lo me'atzmo shum davar. That's why it's so confusing when you open up the Rambam, you begin to learn Sefer Hamad, and you begin to Yesod Torah, and the Rambam speaks like the Kadmonim spoke about the Galgalim planets having intelligence. They were called actually intelligences, sichli. That in that way of understanding, there was some level of bechira that seems according to that way of thinking, that seems to exist even in the universe other than a human being. It's a very, very controversial and completely outdated mahalach, even though many of these chaykim, including the Rama, were tzaddikim kedoshei elyon. Nevertheless, the Vilna Gaon himself wrote about these things, that HaPhilosophia Haru, he wrote in a very strong way that the accursed philosophy caused confusion. It brought about a certain confusion. So we could try to understand the Rambam in a way of Pnimius, and to understand the writings of some of those Kadmonim in a way of Pnimius. It's very, very hard to do that. And it's not worth really the effort, because we believe in the Rambam being a tzaddik yisod and being a Baal Ruach HaKodesh. But that was Ashgacha, that at that time that there would be such a challenge because in that time of the world, that was the challenge of so-called science in the early Middle Ages. That was science at that time. And the Rambam was speaking to a generation, to a world that was trying to understand that mechanical, what appeared to be in a mechanical universe in the Or of Teres Hashem. And therefore the Rambam had to speak in a way that would not cause a shviras hakelim to that generation. And we accept the Rambam is the biggest tzaddik in the world, and we can't be bigger than any tzaddik in the world. But what happened with this Inyan? Do the Galgalim, does Jupiter and Mars, are they making decisions? No, they're not making any decisions. Even though you see that in the Lashonis of the Rishonim, they speak in such a way. Kilo, the Galgalim have some sort of ideas, that they have some sort of knowledge. But the truth is that only man can make a decision. But it's a big kasha how that works. Not only in the physical functioning, we understand that the body of a person works in the regular state of Ashtarshlis. That's how the body functions. It does function according to the teva that Hashem created. That's how the body functions. So the hand listens to the brain. That's how, again, everything is okay. The hand listens to the brain. So that's all part of that Seder. But we need to understand, how does that stop when it comes to the person's way of thinking and his way and his ratzon and his choices? Suddenly that stops. In other words, all the cells in our brain are working according to the Seder of Hishtalshelus. All the cells are working according to a way without Bechira. The cells are all working according to the same way that the plants grow and the sun shines. That's how all the cells in the brain work. And with all of that Seder in place, and it's in a way of chukim umishpatim, that Hashem made all of creation, this person can, with those cells, this person can say, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this mitzvah. Or I'm going to go against everything and do this mitzvah, whatever it is. To have a ratzon, to have desire, to have ratzon. Kol elam iskayim mikoach makor eloki. All of these cells come from the same Borei Olam who created every nivra, all that exists. It comes mikoach makor eloki, shema avsheres kiyum. Again, every single second, Hashem is giving existence and energy to every single cell in our bodies, every single cell in our minds, in our hearts. Everything that is inside of us is part of the Seder Vishtalshlus of Yesh Me'ayin, of a Nivra, and Hashem is giving it chiyus every single second. And that happens be'ofen hechrechi. That's in a way that the body doesn't have a choice. It's be'ofen hechrechi. It must be. V'lo b'chiri. It's not b'chira. And in the middle of all of that, all of a sudden, the person says, I'm taking over from work today. Whatever, something like, he has a ratzon. Therefore, Bechira Chavshis is a stira pnimis. It's not just something to speculate, to think about. It's an Indian of philosophy. It's a stira minei ubei, in the person himself. One's ratzon is soiser everything that exists in the person himself. Our conversation right now, our learning this is a stira to our bodies, to all these cells. Our every thought and action is a stira, and dibur, every word is a stira. It contradicts the metzias of this thing that's called an adam, a basar adam, that they study in a laboratory. It's a stira minayube. It's not. You don't have to go looking someplace else for contradictions. You don't have to look someplace else for steers. The human being himself is the biggest steer. That Yoshib B'Seisur Elyon, like we're learning on Tuesday night in the Sharagan. Yoshib B'Seisur Elyon, that a person lives in this Seisur Elyon, in this amazing steer. The person lives in that steer, the Seisur Elyon. That each and every one of us is made of contradictions, and the biggest contradiction that we spoke about that on Tuesday night, that a finite basar adam can be misdabek to the infinite, to Ein Sof. As you and I have the ability to decide to have a connection to that which is infinite. But I'm finite. We're finite. How could a cell do such a thing? How can an amoeba, how could a molecule, how can an atom, how could a blob of gook make such a decision? To be misdabek to that which is Ein Sof. So this is the Inyan we're talking about in that Shir. We're talking about Emunah. It comes from the highest place of Keser, the Reisha D'Leisyada, which we can't understand, but we have Emunah, that I can be Noisei Hafachim, that I am a Yoshev B'Seisur Elyon, that I live in a stira. My existence is a stira. My every moment of my existence is a stira. Even when I'm sleeping, a person's mind is working somehow, whatever, dreaming or other stuff. I live in a stira. So we should not just take this for granted. We need to think about this. We need to study this. We need to learn and to understand what this means. So Baruch Hashem Simcha. Now we're going to continue with the Torah from Rav Kook. Bez Hashem next day of Shabbos. Rav Shabbos Lechtik and Shabbos.
Hey, okay.
We have to come do the. Yeah,